We're going to talk a little recruiting news real quick. All right, Jordan. A few things have happened in the world of Clemson recruiting, and feel like we need a quick update because some things happened between our last show this Wednesday and the game today. So go ahead and get us up to speed on everything happening in Clemson recruiting, specifically in this 2025 class.
Yeah, I'll keep it quick, but I felt like we just did something I wanted to address because we haven't really done a recruiting segment in a while. I was going to drop just an individual video, but my laptop is being weird and doesn't want to cooperate with me when I record these. So until I do that, this will have to do, and we'll just clip it. But I'll start with the good news that you got today. 4-star safety Jordan Young from Monroe, North Carolina, announced his commitment to Clemson. Recruitment that had a lot of ups and downs, since really June. For a long time, felt like a Clemson lean. Took his visit to NC State. They seized momentum, and it seemed like he was trending, to make a public commitment to NC State. Clemson stayed on him, and he delayed his recruitment into the season. You had some other teams get in, Florida State and Michigan specifically made a really strong push towards the end. But Clemson was the mainstay. They had been the consistent, team in his recruitment. And he announced today in a ceremony. It was he faked us out like 8 different times with the hats, but at the end of the day, big addition to the DB class, especially considering the loss that you had yesterday that I'll talk about. But big deal just for optics because this class has certainly taken its hits over the past few months. So he's a guy that projects, he played both ways at Monroe, played a wide receiver and defensive back, but definitely projects as a safety. And I think that's where his skill set will best be utilized. And it's a good addition to the class. And we'll see, obviously in today's recruiting world, we'll see if he, makes it to signing day. But I think for now, you have his commitment. So, and then I'll talk about what the happenings from yesterday. You got another commit and you had a decommitment. I'll start with the decommitment. Actually, no, I'll do it in order chronologically from that day. Started with a surprise commitment from Tampa, Florida offensive line prospect Gavin Blanchard from UCF. A guy that Clemson had a previous relationship to. He had camped multiple times at Clemson. Clemson liked him a lot. There were certain things that they wanted him to, reach before they extended an offer. He decides to, go a different direction and commit to UCF. And, down the road, Clemson, felt like they needed to add another offensive line body to add, in addition to the 3 that you already have. And he decided to pull the trigger yesterday, flipped to Clemson. He projects, I think, to play center. I think that's ultimately where he'll play, but he has a lot of positional versatility. He played at Jesuit High School. If that high school sounds familiar, that's the same school that Wade Andrew Woodaz went to. So Clemson tapping into that Tampa, kind of pipeline that they've had going for a little while now. But yeah, I think he's a guy that will definitely. I think he'll need some time, but he's a guy that I think has a ready-made body, and just I think with coaching, I think he'll eventually become a really nice contributor for you. So nice get. Then the bad news from yesterday. Top 100 defensive back Grayson Littleton announced that he has decommitted from Clemson. Not really much of a way to sugarcoat it. This is a pretty tough one. Guy that I had a lot of high, praise for. One of the better athletes that you had in the class. Extremely, extremely fast. he again, he announced his decommitment from Clemson. Michigan is the team to watch there. They have certainly been throwing around their newly found NIL cachet, and that certainly did play a role in this. It wasn't a surprise to the staff, according to what's been reported. So we'll see what they decide to do and how they choose to pivot. But it's not a great loss for your class. I can't really dress it up any sort of way. That's a big one, and that's another hit that you've taken. That's certainly a large part NIL related. So, and it's not really a reflection of Clemson in terms of the money that they have. It's just a reflection of how Clemson chooses to spend the money that they have, and that's a different conversation. But that's my little recruiting update. Had two pretty good news, and then of course you had the decommitment. So we'll see how Clemson goes about moving forward and closing out this class.
Yeah, absolutely. Some good news there, some not so good news, but seems that the 2025 class is kind of chugging right along, and we'll see where it ends up. A lot of moving parts. Still a ton of time before early signing day in December, at least as far as decommitments and stuff like that going. I can't remember this many decommitments in recent history for the Tigers, being so close to.
You've had what, five, I think.
Five so far this class. Yeah. That's tough. That's not typical of a Clemson recruiting class, but again, times are changing. You got NIL out there. You got a lot of moving pieces and a lot of moving parts, and these are young people that are trying to make the best decision for themselves. And, unfortunately for us, sometimes that means they're not coming to play their football careers at Clemson. So wish them the best, and we'll move on with what we got and, continue to try to build the class. One last thing I want to talk about tonight before we kind of get out of here, and it's the throwing trash on the field. The Clemson fans threw trash on the field tonight. Everybody remembers back to the Georgia-Texas game. Again, that wasn't the first game that's ever happened. You can think back to Tennessee with the mustard bottle thing and that sort of stuff. This has happened in college football before, but at least it became really prevalent, it's happened a couple times since the Georgia-Texas game, where obviously the Texas fans were displeased and threw trash on the field, threw water bottles on the field, got a call overturned, or at least that's how it appeared, that the fans got the call overturned. Clemson does the same thing tonight. Obviously, there was a call out there that the fans didn't like. I think the right call was made, regardless of whether the right call was made or not. It's embarrassing. It's ridiculous. It's inexcusable for fans to throw trash on the field, man. I hate to see stuff like that, and I get the emotion. I'm a very emotional person when it comes to college football. I get mad about this stuff. Clemson means a lot to me. Probably, get a little too mad in games sometimes. Some of that has calmed down over the years, but I used to be much worse than I am now. But anyways, throwing trash on the field, completely unacceptable, man. It's just like, why? Why do we got to be one of the ones that contribute to this trend that's going on in college football right now, ever since that Georgia-Texas game?
I don't know. I'm sure a lot of it was students and very various less of sound mind fans.
Yeah.
That's just it sucks. But I think that was it was kind of just the buildup of the frustration of that entire night. Not excusing it at all. It's certainly not something that we've come to be used to from Clemson. Especially a fan base that prides itself on being classy and all that stuff, Clemson gentlemen and all that. Yeah, just wasn't a good look for sure. I mean, especially on primetime television. They got it sorted out pretty quickly. It didn't turn into a massive thing.
Right. Yeah, no, it didn't. It's just disappointing because, yeah, to your point, Clemson does try to pride themselves on, being a classy fan base, not getting into stuff like that. And it's unfortunate that a small portion of them decided to ruin that tonight and throw water bottles on the field. Completely classist move, regardless of the call. And again, it was the right call.
Right.
The call was right. But I just wanted to address that because I thought it was a terrible look for the Clemson fan base. Unfortunately, it happened, and it shouldn't have. So it is what it is. But didn't have any effect on the scoreboard. Didn't have any effect on a call. Clemson still loses 33-21. And our destiny is no longer in our hands. We don't get to play Miami. We don't get to play SMU. So we got to hope that, somebody loses and we can get into the ACC championship game. But doesn't appear with the schedules left that that's going to happen. So at this point, Clemson's playing for a bowl game. And you got to pick yourself up and move on.
Yep.
It was a puzzling game from start to finish. You never really felt like Clemson was going to get it going. They just never showed on the field that they were going to get it going.
There was one point, I think after their first touchdown drive, I was like, I had that feeling in my, okay, it's like, all right, I think they figured it out. They just needed some time to settle in. But then when you saw the continuous lack of ability to, sustain drives and just dropping routine, not making routine throws, dropping routine passes, lack of execution, all the things we've talked about. It was like, okay, I think I don't know the exact point in the game where I was like, okay, it's this team has regressed back to its old self. Probably, I think probably one at the beginning of the second half, because I was like, this team has been good about second half adjustments for the most part this year. I was like, I was having a meltdown on the timeline for those of you that follow me on Twitter, but I was like, okay, we're all good. I've gotten it out of my system. You're down by 10. We could be a lot worse. This team has done a good job at coming out in second halves and really taking control of the game. I think when Louisville got the ball back and just went right down the field, of course you got bailed out by a drop on 3rd and long that would have been a first down, but you got to stop. I was like, okay. But then when you get the ball back, and I don't even remember, did you go 3 and out? Or was that when you went down and had the field goal block? I don't remember. But
that was a field goal block, I believe.
All these drives are blending together because
they're all running into each other.
Yeah. And I don't even feel like looking at the stats because the drive chart, because I don't care because there's just not much to glean from it because it was all the same. But you get what I'm saying. I think those two possessions for either team, that was the point. I was like, okay, this game is over. And sucky feeling because you hadn't really felt like that, especially against a team that you feel like you should beat. Like Georgia, it was kind of like, okay, is what it is. Like this was a result that was always in the potentially in the cards, but you're disappointed you didn't compete better in that game. But it's Georgia. They have the athletes. They recruit better than you. They have a better roster than you. So I mean that's just what happens sometimes. But tonight, you're at home. Louisville, you're coming off a bye week. Louisville has played how many games? 6, 7 games in a row. And you come out and look like that. Like, that's disappointing, man.
It's inexcusable. Clemson was not ready to play. They got their butts handed to them. Louisville outcoached them, out-executed them, outplayed them, deserved to win the game. Hats off to them. Hats off to their coaching staff, their fans. Clemson back to the drawing board, man. I don't know what else to say. I think we've kind of recapped all we can recap and given our thoughts. It was just a bad game through and through. It wasn't a fluke win. You got manhandled along the lines of scrimmage. You weren't explosive. They were playing too high safety, and you just ran the same plays over and over again, pretending like they were going to work, and they didn't. The defense got manhandled up front, couldn't tackle, taking bad angles to the ball, not setting the edge, no pressure on the quarterback, no adjustments. Special team was terrible. 2 block kicks, There's no positives out of this game. There's really not. There's 0 positive out of this game. It was all bad. At every phase of the game, it was bad. You got beat at every phase of the game. And you shouldn't have. This team's, for the aspirations that Clemson had coming into the game, all of those are gone now because clearly you weren't ready for them. Because if you were, you wouldn't have got beat by this Louisville team. No offense to Louisville.